Okay. All right. Get this sorted. Okay, thanks everyone so far for joining. I'll just give it another moment or two. Hey Jess, nice to have you join. Okay, that'll do. Get out of my face, it's quite warm. All right. Okay, I hope everyone is doing very well. I'll try to keep my thing quite still, but like when I'm constantly switching my screens at hey May, thanks for joining. All right. No, please don't want to join. That should be totally fine. We'll just get started. Hope everyone's having a nice night. I am back. Most of you probably won't know, but I took a few annual leave days recently. I actually was up in Byron Bay doing a retreat, kind of out in the hinterlands. It was so cool. I've done yoga retreats before, but this was like a meditation, breath work, bit of yoga, kind of like a collective healing retreat. It was, an amazing experience. It would be so difficult to explain. Everyone I try to explain it to, I think I say something slightly different because we just did so many different things. The food was amazing. We had this like vegan or vegetarian caterer come who does kind of Middle Eastern food. So it was beautiful. And the location was beautiful. We were staying in this like big kind of glamping tent thing, and they had this big like yurt we all did yoga, and we did like art therapy and eye gazing and kundalini, which if anyone's ever done kundalini before, the first time I did it years ago, I was told it's kundalini yoga, which technically it is. So I was thinking it was like actually a yoga. It's not. It's a very intense kind of intentional breath work that's supposed to kind of stimulate a lower area of your spine that moves energy. It's very difficult to explain, but I'll give you an example. There was one kind of breathwork that we were doing where we had to face someone on the other side of the room, on the other side of the yoga sala, and do this lion breathing. So we would all breathe in and put our arms above our head, and then breathe out and scream and poke your tongue out and drop into a squat. And we did that for literally 5 minutes, staring at each other. This is around like a bunch of other breath work. So it was amazing, relaxing, because you didn't go too far. Like, I guess you were doing breath work and more yin style yogas, but also quite more mentally fatiguing, I guess, because we were just doing so much and it was all kind of so different to our everyday lives. So yeah, anyway, I'm back to reality. Feeling refreshed and excited to get into tonight's topic. So as we all know, the festive season has already begun. I hope everyone's been enjoying the recipe advent calendar. And yeah, we'd love to see if people, when you make any of the recipes, feel free to kind of post and tag us. Hopefully I'll get a chance to make a few myself, and I'm sure I'll be sharing them. But some of them I've made before. So yeah, most of them are pretty simple, delicious, a really good way. Sometimes people, will ask us what to do with our spices or what to do with, I guess, the teas other than drink them. So there are a few different things in there. So yeah, we hope everyone's enjoying them. And yeah, lots more exciting recipes coming up. So, yeah, I guess today we're talking about how to keep your festive season as wholesome as possible. It is actually, I guess it's a little sad that a lot of people get really stressed around this time purely because they're concerned about how they'll manage the food. It's something that comes up all the time, not just because I'm a nutritionist, but everyone, tends to say, oh, I know I'm going to be overeating, and there's I've got so many events with alcohol, and it is very easy to see it in that way, but also we have choice at every single situation. So I guess we'll be getting into kind of how to make some of those choices a little bit easier and a little bit more wholesome. I guess one thing that I'd really like to start off with, though, is that this period of time is never going to be the same as kind of our everyday lives. So it's really important to kind of remember that. Still do the best you can and try to implement like these kind of tips and practices where you can, but also just be kind to yourself. Make sure that if, you are eating something a bit different or you may be eating a little bit more, that you don't just think about I guess the negative side of that. Also try to really focus on, well, I ate this meal with some people that I really care about, and maybe we were out in nature. Maybe I haven't seen these people in a long time. Maybe there was kind of that social aspect of health that you had in abundance, that you really got to nourish yourself with, rather than just focusing on excess food, really. So I think that's an important thing to start with. Just kind of go a little easy on yourself. Also, as usual, if anybody has any comments or questions throughout the chat, feel free to pop it in the comment box, and I'll do my best to check that regularly. But yeah, otherwise at the end of tomorrow, you're welcome to come back in. This link will be in the Facebook group, and you can post any questions in there. Okay, so first, just a few kind of like general tips. As I was just saying, to kind of shift that mindset away from kind of judgment and blame on yourself, but also to shift the mindset to more nourishment. So really focus on, and I think actually one way that this season is almost geared towards or gives us the ability to make good choices is because it tends to be like a family style serve yourself. A lot of these kind of festivity, whether it's like your family Christmas, I'm just picturing all my family Christmases or friends Christmases, people tend to someone will bring something, this auntie will bring a salad, that auntie will bring a dessert, your cousin's going to bring that, your uncle will do whatever they might do, bring the bread. But that's good because it means that no one necessarily is filling up your plate, or you're not getting a set meal that you might not have otherwise ordered, or you might not have otherwise put on your plate. Mostly we get to pick what we're putting in our plates, which is really, really nice. Another thing that I always tend to try to do at this time, or really at any time where I'm at some sort of like a family style serve yourself, is go small from the start. Because if you're like me and you know that you're probably going to want to go back for seconds, or you'll find something that's really delicious and you're going to want more, I normally will try a little bit of everything that I want to try. So there's a few different salads, or maybe there's even a little bit of bread or something that I want to eat that I wouldn't normally eat every single day, but I do like to try occasionally, particularly if it looks extra good. I might just have a little bit. And then if I really, really like it, go back and get some more. Same with like a lot of the salads, and if you eat meat, or if like I personally am pescatarian, so if there's some sort of like a fish or something like that, I'll usually just get a little bit of everything first. If there's anything that I really, really want a second of, which I almost always know there will be, I'll go back and get a little bit more. I think another really good thing to do during this period is also not every single day is going to be some sort of a function or event where you feel like Hey Natasha, thanks for joining. Where you feel like you may be more likely to overindulge. So I think it's still really important to remember that on those days where you're not at one of these events that may feel a bit overwhelming, to just still eat as you would like to, eat as you feel your body would best respond to. So it can be easy to take on the mindset of, oh, I know I've got maybe 5 events coming up in 3 weeks, which may seem like a lot compared to normal, but really that's a very small percentage, especially when you think per meal. In 3 weeks, you'd be eating 21 days worth of 3 meals. That's 60 something meals, and only 5 of those are ones where you have the potential to overindulge, or where there may be more food that you wouldn't otherwise pick for yourself. It's a very, very small portion. So we have heaps of control over those other days. So we have heaps of opportunity to nourish ourselves, and try to remember to keep that focus on the nourishment. So make sure on those days you're eating lots of fresh fruit and veggies, you're eating like your good fiber, maybe some legumes, some good quality meat and proteins. Still continue to fill up on cucumber and lettuce. This is something, I've done the detox in the past. I don't do it anymore. Obviously it's something we only do for a short period of time, but I still, in every meal that I make, I do a lot of like nourished bowls, I guess, as meals. And I will always make sure that I put something in there that adds a lot of bulk without adding a heap of unnecessary energy, I guess. And I think if we don't just think about it from the energy point of view, also the foods that I'm adding in to kind of add the bulk are quite nutrient dense. They'll have a lot of good quality water in there as well, so they're very hydrating, antioxidants and fiber. So these are all really, really important factors for keeping us satiated, for giving us good energy, for allowing us to absorb beneficial nutrients. So when I make like nourished bowls, I might put in, maybe a little bit of rice and then my protein, lots of veggies, but I will usually actually carrot and zucchini are things, and mushrooms recently, actually, I'll kind of bulk it up with them. Also, because I love to eat for a long period of time, I just love to eat. So it's nice for me to be able to sit there and to kind of keep eating something that I know is really, really nourishing for me slowly. So I think in general, if you're at these functions, to try to do that, but also if you're just kind of eating in your day-to-day lives, try to keep up that habit. And there actually is a lot of good research that one meal, if you were to compare, or in these studies, they've had 2 different meals, they have the exact same calories, carbs, proteins, all those kinds of things, but one had like literally lettuce. Actually, there was another study I do remember where they gave people smoothies, and one of the smoothies they like whipped up, so it was a larger volume, but it had the exact same ingredients in it, and those people felt fuller for significantly longer, and they also ate less at night. So this technique may seem small, but it actually does do a lot. So I think it's something really good to practice in general, but also particularly throughout this period. I'd also say to lean on your approved sources, even when you're not on detox, and particularly throughout this period of time. Ever since I first started working with Live by Nature and I did the detox, I have always kept my food stocked with light mayo. The light sweet chili sauce is a game changer. I didn't even know that I like sweet chili sauce that much. It's mind-blowing. And a few of the others, I've really gotten into sriracha, which I never used to do. A lot of those new life sauces I love having. So I think it's really nice to know that there are really good flavor options out there, and particularly the seasonings. Oh, I go through our seasonings pretty quickly, but they're delicious and they're so good for you. So I think it's a really good practice to continue. And definitely also continuing to drink lots of water and herbal tea. So not only are they going to they do help fill you up a little bit, it's more so keeping hydrated is so important for so many other reasons. And particularly to add in herbal tea, getting all of the extra benefits of whatever it is that those herbs are doing. Definitely still, hey Becky, no problem. Thanks for coming along. Definitely still aiming to eat regular meals. So like I was saying, if you have 5 events over a 3-week period, there's still 60 something meals within that period of time overall. So there's still 55 meals where you get to choose what you're eating, or you have more choice of what you're eating. So definitely try to keep your meals regular and even try to plan them in advance. I find this to be really beneficial for myself, particularly if you're still working. Any work day, I usually will almost basically do a meal prep as if I was taking my lunch to work. I'll just do it, leave it in the fridge, and then eat it through the day. I just find it keeps me on top of kind of my nourishment. It means I don't have to spend so much time prepping during the day. I know that I'm going to be eating really good quality foods and I'm going to be full enough to continue working. But even if you're not working, it's still a really good practice to do. And I think also it's really important for times where you might feel as though you've slipped up, or you might be kind of having that negative internal chatter that you've made some sort of a mistake, or you wish you'd done something better, or whatever it may be. Having foods planned out in advance, it makes it so much easier to just pop that behind you. Like we like to say, fail quickly. If you've done something that maybe you don't feel so happy with, first of all, give yourself a little break. I'm sure it wasn't that bad. But just jump straight back on the bandwagon, put it behind you, get back to the food that you've already got planned out, know that you're going to be nourishing your body for all the right reasons. And I think that's always important to remember why it is that we like to eat healthy. The way that we look is such a small factor. It's really about the way that we feel, our longevity, how we're kind of setting ourselves up, not just for that day, because that is so important, how we're setting ourselves up for that day, but also for the rest of our lives. The food that we eat now really does play a role in how disease may or may not progress later, or how much pain we may be in, or how much energy we may have. So it's always important to keep both the short-term and the long-term in mind. And yeah, don't be too hard on yourself. Move straight on. Move your body. Try to move your body every single day. And for me, something that's really, really important to remember with movement is that it doesn't have to be exercise. And for a lot of people, I personally love to exercise. So I'm not freaked out by the word exercise, but I know a lot of people are. And in the past, I definitely was. So it's totally fine to not consider, I guess, to not feel pressured to exercise, but to have a movement practice, I think, is the most important thing. So making sure that you're moving your body every single day. If you know that you work in an office, before work, you might literally just roll out of bed, get ready for the day, get into the office, come home at night, make dinner, whatever else you may do, but you know that there's not that much movement going on in there. It doesn't necessarily have to be that you have to go to the gym before and after work, or it doesn't necessarily have to mean that you have to go on some crazy run. The most important thing is really just figuring out what you like to do. And I think also making it social where you can. So one of the best things I think to do is whatever movement you can do with a friend. It might be going for a walk is a really good one. If you like to play social sports, that's fantastic. It could literally be something as old school as on the weekend, like getting out your bocce balls, or getting out a backyard cricket, getting out a frisbee, having a throw around, taking your dog down to the park and running them around. Anything that's going to get you moving a little bit more, and also kind of trying to plan a little bit more, I guess, incidental movement into every day. So I'm sure a lot of us have heard this tip before, but it actually does make a really big difference. It's even just parking your car a little bit further away from work so you can walk that extra bit of distance. That really helps to get the body moving on your break instead of just sitting. Try to do a lap of the block and then have your lunch, or do a lap of the block after. Another really good thing about exercise before and after meals is that research shows that if we bookend big meals, particularly meals with carbohydrates, with exercise, so if we're exercising before or after, probably be something a little bit more intense than just a quick lap around the block, but still, it actually helps us to balance out that blood glucose a lot better. And it's been shown to kind of reduce the adipose storage, so our body's storage of fat after a meal. So trying to move your body every single day, as I said, doesn't mean going to the gym every day. It might be knowing that maybe you love to go to the gym, and that is so great. If you like to go 5 days a week, that's great. If you like to go 3 days a week, that's great. Just make sure that those days in between, it's even just, going for an extra walk with your dog, or going for a walk with a friend instead of just sitting down for coffee. Grab your coffee, go, bring your keep cups and have a walk and a chat instead of a sit and a chat. Choose healthy socialization. So like what I just said about meeting up with a friend instead of going somewhere to sit down, or going somewhere to maybe eat unhealthy food or whatever else it may be, going somewhere to drink even. Try to go for a walk. And that could just literally just be around the streets. But how nice would it be to go out on a hike somewhere, to go out, find your different path? There are some really great apps. Actually, after work today, I went on a hike with a couple of friends, and it was so beautiful. And it's just such a nice way to, I guess, have that communal appreciation of nature in your environment, because I can be feeling it myself, but as soon as I say it to someone else and they kind of reciprocate it, you feel that gratitude, I guess, amplified. It's a really, really nice way, I guess, to interact with your friends. And there's this really great app called All Trails. Sometimes I'll literally just jump on my phone and have a look at what trails are around. But All Trails is really great because it tells you a lot of different, even if it's an offshoot of a trail that you've done before, or a walking track that you knew about but you didn't know that it went as far, or whatever it may be. It's a really nice way to find different things to do, because I guess when it comes to walking with friends, you might love to do the same route, but you might like to mix up the way that you socialize with your friends. So just finding a different place to walk, or whatever it may be, is a really nice way to go about it. And it could even be like, if it doesn't appeal to you, it could be instead of going for drinks at night, you go for a coffee or like a nice brunch in the morning. So trying to do something that can still be a healthy choice. Obviously, having a little bit of alcohol is okay if we're kind of balancing out the rest of our diet, but if you can avoid it, if instead of suggesting to go for a drink, you could suggest something that you would have eaten or done instead. I think that's another really good way to kind of keep yourself a little bit more balanced throughout this period, where there probably are going to be more events where people may be choosing to drink. But when it does come to alcohol, I think it's always important to have events where you don't drink, not just because obviously we don't really need to be drinking excess alcohol, but I think mentally it's quite nice to go to events and not be drinking. And I think a lot of it is, sometimes a person, we might feel less confident, we might feel a little bit more self-conscious, we might be in our heads a little bit if you feel like you have to put in extra effort to make conversation, or maybe it doesn't come quite as naturally. But I think the more we do it and the more confident and comfortable we feel, we actually really start to gain a level of, I guess, almost identity with that confidence, with knowing that we can have a lot of fun and be engaging and have great conversations with people without needing to rely on that. And we do it all the time, every single day when we're not drinking. So we all know that we can do it. I think, balancing out your alcohol is also another really important factor to kind of keep in mind during this period. Okay, so this one is kind of a little bit more specific for maybe Christmas Day or any of those events where you're filling up your own plate. Try, I guess, usually in the lead up to the big feast or the big meal, there'll kind of be little snacks around, maybe some dips, maybe some little chocolates, maybe some nuts and little dried fruits or whatever. I think a really good thing in general to do is try to avoid those. Or what I will like to do, because I love to snack and nibble. I'm such a grazer, which is probably why I try to bulk my meals up with some really nourishing yet not, I guess, bulky, not heavy things, is so that I can eat lots. But I think a really good thing to do, actually, for grazing plates too, one of my favorite things to do is literally to just snack on the veggies on there, or just have a little bit of the fruit. And I'll probably still do a few dips if depends on the situation, but usually for these events where I know, okay, I'm probably going to have at least my first kind of little sample plate, and then I'll probably go back for more. I'm probably going to eat a little bit more than I usually do. I'll usually tend to try and avoid kind of filling up on any of that unnecessary, avoidable, mostly junk food that comes before it. So try to skip too many, or overall try to skip the dips and the nibbles, and especially the chocolates and all those kind of things. And instead, when you do get to the main meal, really try to fill your plate up with things that are going to be nourishing. So salads, veggies, try to avoid too many of the breads and the snacks. And I guess just in general, what most people who've done detox will have learned about how to kind of fill themselves up, and what they've learned about their own hunger and satiety and just feeling satisfied with their food is that it's surprising that a meal that may look small, or you may have previously perceived as small, can do so much and can be so delicious. So I think try to keep all those things in mind. Definitely start slow. always start with just a tiny little bit of, maybe there are a couple of things you want to try. And then if you want to go back for seconds, you know that you can without already being so completely full, but something was just so delicious that you have to have a little bit more. Try to really stick to those healthy choices as possible. And if you are bringing something, try to bring something that maybe it's one of your favorite meals from detox, or you might want to add in an extra vegetable or an extra something wholesome and nourishing to it that might add a little bit more flavor or texture, or whatever it is that you're looking for. But try to really bring that for yourself so that you have that healthy option there, but also so that other people do. I think one of my favorite things about these events, when I bring something, is that most people don't realize that I've brought it, because if they know that I've brought it, they'll probably just assume that it's not going to taste that good, because they know that I like to eat healthy, and most people just think healthy food is not very delicious. But I think that's something that I really find these kind of events to be a nice opportunity to share that with other people, to let other people experience for themselves just how delicious healthy food can be. And then also, if they see you there and you're so energetic and you're looking radiant and you're glowing and you're happy, and they know that this is how you eat, that is an extra motivation for these people, or for anyone else, to kind of start to adopt some healthier habits. And then when it comes to dessert, another thing that I always like to bring for these kind of especially Christmas, but any of these events, is a healthy dessert. We'll cover a few at the end, but it's literally one of my favorite feelings, and people don't realize that I brought the dessert, and it's really healthy and people really enjoy it. Healthy fruit is so yum. Yes. Thanks, Becky. It is. And I can understand why a lot of people might be hesitant and think initially that healthy food can't be yummy. Because I think when I was younger, I always thought the same thing. To me, a salad was literally just like lettuce and tomato. But now, for me, a salad is like a really exciting... I usually like to call them nourish bowls instead, because so many people still have that perception of salad just being like a few leaves and it could never fill you up. My salads have everything in them. They are so colorful. They have so much flavor. I put in heaps of spices, heaps of seasonings, lots of really good, like wholesome... they're always different, but sauces, or I make my own dressings by mixing different sauces and seasonings and stuff, and they always taste amazing. Not just me who thinks that, other people who try them also think it. So yes, healthy food is definitely delicious. And healthy desserts, we'll get to that. But Yeah, that's a whole nother fun area. Okay, so I just wanted to go over a few tips for managing big meals. So I know I've spoken about really trying to be conscious of starting small. Then if you really want or feel as though you're still hungry and you want to eat a little bit more, then going back, instead of starting with a massive meal and then knowing you're going to go back for seconds anyway and feeling terrible and being tired and sleepy and a sore tummy. And I just can think of so many Christmases in the past where I would load up my plate and then dessert would come out and I'd be like, oh my goodness, I want to try everything, and I always would, and I'd feel terrible. So for those times where maybe we accidentally do eat a little bit more or a little bit differently to what you normally would, or you're kind of starting to get that feeling of it's not sitting quite right, or it just, you know, that it's not the ideal situation you were hoping for. My first tip is, I guess these tips are mostly all around managing your blood glucose levels and then also supporting healthy digestion. So first of all, a couple of ways to help manage those blood glucose. So anytime we eat anything, we're going to ingest part glucose. I used to think healthy food was nasty, Jess. Yeah, so did I. I actually did when I was younger. It wasn't really until maybe a year or so into my nutrition studies. I think even before then, I was still skeptical that I just thought maybe some healthy fruit tasted yummy. Okay, so anytime that we eat, particularly a meal that's bigger in carbs, which a lot of festive fruit tends to be, but anytime that we eat, we're going to intake some glucose. If the glucose sits in our blood for too long, it can be quite damaging. I guess most of us would be aware of what some of the kind of side effects or symptoms of diabetes are. So that's if the glucose is sitting in their blood for too long. Same with people who don't have diabetes. If you eat lots of carbs or a really big meal or lots of sugar or something like that, and you have excess glucose kind of sitting in your blood, it can also cause damage. So we want to make sure that we are kind of getting that out. Hang on one second. Okay, sorry. All right, I accidentally locked my partner out. So, all right, managing our blood glucose. My first tip is cinnamon. So cinnamon obviously is something that a lot of us use to flavor food, but true cinnamon, so like the herbal cinnamon, actually is used in herbal medicine as kind of a blood glucose regulator. So you might be thinking, well, where can I get this really good quality cinnamon? It's actually in our fat burning tea too. So I think drinking that tea around big meals, whether it's before, during, or after, can really help our bodies manage blood glucose levels. Make sure that if you've had these moments where you think you're going to eat a lot, or you know you already have, that you've eaten sufficient levels of fiber, protein, and healthy fats within that meal. Doesn't necessarily have to be all of them, but each of those actually helps to slow glucose absorption. So they kind of, I guess, bind to more of it within our guts and makes us not uptake it as rapidly. So instead of having this big spike, it's just kind of going to be a little bit more gradual, a little bit more manageable for the body. Magnesium is another really helpful, I guess, supplement. True being sticks. I don't know what that means, Becky. Feel free to post another comment, and I'm happy to answer your question. Okay, so magnesium is another really, really beneficial one for our blood glucose level. It actually helps our GLUT4 transporters take glucose out of the blood and into the cells. So it's also got lots and lots of other benefits. Most of us would know, helping muscle cramps, kind of any sort of anxiety. It helps us produce more GABA. It helps us sleep because it's really needed for melatonin, conversion into melatonin. So it's got heaps and heaps of benefits, but managing blood glucose levels is one really important one. True. Is cinnamon true? The sticks. I actually don't think they all are, not necessarily. Some of the sticks can still be like one of the other, not families, but one of the other types of cinnamon. So you can actually get both. You'd have to look up where to get them, but not all cinnamon sticks are the true ones that have the health properties, because a lot of the cinnamon that we'll have like in food or in whatever else it may be, I know it's well, it's cheaper. It's a lot cheaper. It doesn't have the same properties, so I think that's why it's not always as common to find the ones that have health benefits, but you can, so you'd have to go searching. Okay, magnesium. Another really good way to kind of manage your blood glucose and to manage, I guess, your health around eating big meals is exercising. So like I said before, there's research that shows that bookending big, especially carb-based meals with exercise actually helps to balance out our blood glucose. So they tested people's blood glucose levels again, however many hours it was after a meal. Some people had exercised, some hadn't, and the people who had exercised had significantly better glucose levels. They were nowhere near as high. They were at a way more manageable level. And I can't remember exactly how it worked for weight, but they did find a similar thing with fat storage. People who had exercise, their bodies didn't actually store as much fat. I guess it does make a little bit of sense. The only thing I will say, though, is if you've eaten a really massive meal and you go and do some really intense exercise, your body is going to be using a lot of energy and sending a lot of blood flow to your muscles and to your heart to be able to pump to kind of meet the demands of that increased exercise. So you may not digest your food so well. So that's where it's going to be really important to kind of work on your digestion. So what else could you do post-meal for digestion? You could drink our T3. That actually has a few ingredients in there that are really good for kind of stimulating some digestive secretions, helping to break down food, as well as balancing out a little bit of blood glucose. Most of helping digestion will come before a meal or during a meal, so making sure you're chewing your food really well. You want to be producing heaps of saliva, eating in a nice calm environment when we're relaxed, are kind of in that rest and digest phase anyway. And my last tip for managing blood glucose is Persa, any particular brand. I assume I still talking about cinnamon. No, I'm sorry, I do not know. I don't think it's something that you can really get from the supermarket, to be honest. Don't off the top of my head, because I haven't really had to go looking for like medicinal grade cinnamon. If I cook with cinnamon, you still will get some health properties from the ones that you can get in the supermarket, but if you want something that's going to be a lot more effective and stronger, it would need to be the other type of cinnamon. They actually do have a slightly different taste. One is the true cinnamon, like the medicinal one is a little bit more like earthy tasting, I guess, a bit stronger, but you might not be able to find it in the supermarket. You will still get some benefit from the supermarket ones from the non-true ones. But yeah, you'd probably have to go to a health food store or go online. My last tip for kind of managing around big meals is fasting. So fasting is not something that I normally recommend for people, particularly women. Men are a little bit different. And it's because as women, our hormones fluctuate over a 30-day cycle. So obviously with our periods, our hormones are kind of constantly changing, whereas men's hormones fluctuate over a 24-hour cycle. So they actually can manage longer fasts because of those different fluctuations. It's actually the research around fasting initially was all on men and postmenopausal women because they weren't having their periods, or they weren't like of childbirthing age. Now that there are some studies on premenopausal women, we actually do know that the way that our hormones fluctuate doesn't necessarily suit long fasting. So I'd say for most women who are still menstruating, you wouldn't necessarily want to be fasting for too much more than 14. I think 16 might be a bit much, but daily 14 hours, even occasional longer fasts. For some women, it's okay. You actually would have to do a lot of work to kind of balance out your hormone levels, your liver's ability to detoxify, because our livers actually detoxify hormones as well. Your liver has to be functioning really well. I know even for myself in the past, many years ago when I did longer fasts a few times a week, they were like 32 hours. So I would stop eating at dinner one night, wouldn't eat for a day, and then would break the fast at breakfast the next day. I did that like twice a week, which is a lot to jump straight into, but this was when I was young and didn't know much and was just experimenting. Completely mess with my sleep, my periods, everything. So it really does affect our hormones differently. But what is beneficial about this particular amount of eating big meals is that the longer that we fast, they actually said that it takes about 14 hours. Well, 12 hours for kind of that apoptosis, cell death, kind of cleaning up to be occurring really sufficiently, but at least 14 hours for our fat burning mechanisms to kick back in. And it basically gives your body like a big break to actually manage and process all of the food that you've just eaten, and then to also kind of, I guess, we don't necessarily need to go, oh, today I ate lots, so tomorrow I don't need to eat that much. But in a way, our bodies do kind of work like that. So I think anytime, especially food timing is really important. If you're eating really, really late in the day, I think it's important to always have at least 12 hours without eating. So if you have a really late night, you might still be having a drink. You might still be nibbling on things at, 10 p.m. Try not to eat or even drink anything. You can have water, herbal tea, black coffee, but anything that would have like a calorie in it, although I'm not a calorie person, but it's just a good way to kind of conceptualize what you can and can't have for at least 12 hours. That's a really good way to actually help to get your body straight back into being normal or as quickly as possible, and then continue on with all those healthy meals that you already have planned out. That's why my partner could go without breakfast all the time. I could only do that from the detox shots, but have continued now after the detox. Yeah, cool. It does. I normally don't like to think that like men and women, we can't, if they can do things, we can do things. But actually this is one of those things where our bodies are just so physiologically different. Our hormones, not only are they different, but it's the timing of when they fluctuate that is so different. And it does, men really can tend to fast for a lot longer. And I think most men I would probably recommend to do longer fasts, I guess, depending on what their goals are. But yeah, they can tend to find it a little bit easier than us. Okay, some tips for managing appetite. So appetite's an interesting one. There are lots of different reasons that we have appetite. I guess one big one is hunger. Another big one, I think the first thing to kind of consider, particularly when you're going into some of these festive situations where there might be, one thing for me is pavlova, or anything that kind of reminds me of like my grandma's cooking or just that feeling of a child. It's really important to recognize why you love it. So for me, it was that feeling. It was my grandma had made it. It was memories, or it still is memories of other Christmases or whatever it might be. I think it's important to kind of hold on to that feeling and know that you can have that feeling with the people without having to have a massive slice of pavlova after you've just eaten way more other food that maybe already made you feel a bit yucky. So kind of identifying why it is that you might have an appetite for something, And for me personally, because I wouldn't be in too many situations where there is pavlova or something like that, when it's there, I will usually either avoid it completely, but if I really, really want it, I'll have it. And I'll just have a little bit. And I will savor every single bite. You'll never see me like standing up and rushing through a dessert or any sort of food. If I'm in one of these situations, I always want to go and sit down, put my spoon down between bites, really let it sit in my mouth and enjoy it and love it. And I think that is such a good way to curb your appetite, because appetite doesn't, it's not because we're so hungry and we need to eat heaps of food. It normally is related to a feeling, or it's related to maybe not fully understanding hunger signals or not being kind of aware of them, or I would say it's normally a feeling. So recognizing where you're getting that feeling and how you can nourish it with, or I guess feed that feeling without having to actually overfeed yourself. Another really good tip to manage appetite is to wait out hunger. So this is more if you feel like you're getting really, you know that feeling when you're like hungry and then you almost get anxious, like I have to eat right now. Depending on the exact situation, if you've kind of, particularly maybe by the end of detox, you become quite aware of your hunger signals, what they mean. Sometimes I know my body is tricking me, and unfortunately they do that, because our hunger hormones do actually fluctuate naturally throughout the day. Like most people would probably have had that experience where you've eaten a meal and you're still hungry. We know that we don't need to eat. We've just had what should have been a satiating meal. It's obviously something that hasn't quite kicked in yet or sunken in yet. Usually you just need to sit with it. And in that situation, it's probably more that you need to let the food actually sit and start to digest and absorb, and let ourselves feel that satiation and know that we're not actually hungry. But also our hunger hormones do naturally fluctuate. So I've covered this in another live before, but this is something you can also Google, just hunger hormone ghrelin levels throughout the day. You'll see that they do naturally do this a little bit. So sometimes, particularly sometimes I wake up in the morning and think, oh man, I'm so hungry, I need to eat. But I've literally just woken up. I haven't done a thing yet. I haven't even drunk water. I know that that's not what my body responds the best to. Normally that will actually make me feel more hungry. So I kind of know that how my morning, what's best for me, and it's usually not eating first thing. So I'll wait it out. It always passes. Sometimes it only takes a couple of minutes. All I need to do is just get up, move around a little bit, maybe have some water, have a coffee, have a tea, whatever it might be. And then that's gone, because especially if I'm exercising in the morning, I usually don't like to have anything in my belly. But yeah, wait out your hunger. Ensuring sufficient fiber intake. So this is a really good one for hunger and appetite, because fiber does help to fill us up. Another really awesome thing that fiber is a prebiotic. So we have probiotics, our bacteria. So that's basically any food or supplement that contains bacteria. We also have prebiotics. So these basically feed the bacteria. And fiber is a prebiotic. So if you think of like fruits and veggies, artichoke is a really big one. Even like whole grains, legumes, brown rice, like quinoa, all of your lentils, those kind of things, they're really good fiber sources. They're nutrient dense. They also feed your healthy bacteria, which we know then communicate with a lot of our hunger signals too. Since I finished the detox, I noticed the cravings and or habit for carbs creeping back in. Any tips what to eat instead to get that same kick that we get from a carb snack? Yes. There are a couple of things that you can do. I guess it depends on exactly what the snack is and what time of the day it is, because sometimes if we are feeling that kind of in the middle of the afternoon, it can be for a few different reasons. One reason is if your lunch was maybe too big, that can kind of spike our blood glucose or mess with some of the ghrelin and leptin, and then it drops later, and that's why we can feel hungrier later. But actually my biggest tip is kind of around actually managing your melatonin, which might sound a little bit stray from having a carb craving, but carb cravings can be really related to your cortisol, which is then related to your melatonin and your glucose and stuff like that. Okay. So a few really good ways to manage your melatonin. My best, favorite, and most fun tip is getting natural sunlight in the morning. When you have sunlight on your skin, it stimulates healthy levels of cortisol, which then later in the day will help to ensure that you have healthy levels of melatonin. It basically just keeps that cycle exactly as we want it to be. So getting good sunlight in the morning is really good for that. And then also in the evening, making sure that you're not looking at your phones, because that blue light then blocks our melatonin, and then that messes up our cortisol throughout the day, which then affects our blood glucose, which makes us crave carbs. I definitely recommend, I think I wrote a blog. I'm pretty sure we recently posted a blog about sleep. If not, there's definitely a live you can go back to, watch some of the tips from in there. But a lot of those tips actually are also really helpful for carb cravings. Fiber, yes, okay. Another really great thing that fiber does, so not only does it feed our healthy bacteria, they tend to be really nutrient-dense sources, helps keep us fuller for longer. Research actually shows that eating a high-fiber meal can reduce energy intake throughout the day and at the next meal by up to 25%. So a lot of that has to do because of the way that it makes us feel fuller, also balance out our blood glucose, feeds our healthy bacteria. It's such a good tip. I guess the good thing about it, aside from all those great things that I just said, is that it makes our job easier. It makes it easier. It makes us more naturally just feel satiated and not as though we're searching for food, because it literally changes our physiology. If we're eating high fiber meals, it's feeding this bacteria. It flows on to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. We're naturally not having those cravings anymore. Or we don't have the same big appetite. So protein, healthy fats, kind of like I said before with the blood glucose, this is a really good way to help balance out your hunger and appetite as well. Increasing the appearance of food volume. I've said that one before too, but I think it's such an important thing to remember, particularly when it comes to appetite, because sometimes it's literally just our brain being like, I see all this food, I want to eat lots. And sometimes it's when it's really important to just kind of sit with ourselves and think, how am I going to feel after this? I mean, how am I physically going to feel? I'm going to feel heavy. I'm probably going to feel a little bit tired, a little bit yucky. I might be a bit frustrated with myself that then that lack of energy makes me unable to communicate as well, makes me unable to appreciate other people in the room as much. So by increasing the volume of our food, our brains can still feel as though they're eating lots, but we don't have to feel quite so full and yucky. And also, like, mentally, you're welcome. Sorry, May, I just saw your comment. No problem. Mentally, we can be a little bit hard on ourselves. And although I've said don't be, sometimes that's easier said than done. So sometimes it's nice to just avoid those situations, be hard on yourself, and just get more food through really wholesome means by eating more veggies and more fiber within a meal. And then some tips to support digestion and elimination. So kind of like I said from the start, if you're eating things that are slightly different or you're eating in slightly higher volumes, you're probably going to need a little bit more digestive power to be able to break it down properly. And that actually, food transit time, so the better we digest things, the faster it's going to move through our system, has actually been shown to decrease the energy that we absorb from the food. So basically it means that we poop out more calories. And like I said, I don't really like to focus on calories, but sometimes it's just an easy way to explain things. So basically, if we can improve our digestion, we can make sure that the food that we eat can pass through us in a healthy way. We can absorb all the nutrients is another really important thing. We cannot absorb anything from something that hasn't been digested. If you see something pass, like you see big chunks of food in your stool, you haven't digested properly and your body has not being able to extract the nutrients from that it otherwise would if you were digesting properly. So my top tips for improving your digestion, like I said before, chewing your food. So saliva is so important for then stimulating your gastric juices, bile, which is also a lubricant to help stool move through faster. Another really good thing about chewing is obviously that it breaks the food into smaller pieces. So if you think about, like, say, a nut, an almond, or whatever it might be, and you chew it once, it's in two big pieces, and then it's just sitting in your belly. Your body has to break that down. It has to produce enough digestive acids for that to break down. But if you chew it heaps, and it's basically like almond meal or a powder or a liquid, a lot of the work's already done. Eating slowly is another really good one for our digestion. If we are just hoovering food in, we're definitely not chewing enough. But also kind of be able to give our body time to produce those digestive acids, which again needs saliva, is really, really important. Food gratitude is another really great one for helping with digestion. So it helps to keep us calm. And like I've said, our parasympathetic nervous system is our rest and digest. When we're nice and calm, a lot of the blood will flow back to our digestive system. We can produce a lot more acids and enzymes to break down our food. And another actually big one that a lot of people don't always realize is to not actually drink too much water with a meal. So if you're drinking lots of water with a meal, it actually dilutes our stomach acids. So we say that you only really want to drink 1 glass of water during a meal, and then kind of save the rest, because obviously it's important to drink heaps of water throughout the day. We want to be drinking a few liters or a couple of liters depending on the person. So at least half an hour before a meal is when you can be drinking all your water up until. And then during that meal, just 1 glass, and then wait at least half an hour after a meal before you start drinking a lot more water. To support your elimination. So we want to be digesting things properly, absorbing all the nutrients, but then we also want to make sure that when we do have stools that are ready to be passed, they're being passed out. So fiber is a really good one because it binds to foods and also to toxins. So fiber has so many benefits, but when we're eating a high fiber kind of diet, it helps to bind to maybe a lot of the other things that we'd like to pass out, and it helps them pass. Another really good thing about having good digestion, particularly anything that's going to stimulate bile. So like I said about chewing, bile is a natural lubricant. It will just help stool flush and move out a lot quicker. Also, any bitter food. Bitter food is so great for stimulating the liver to produce bile, which then helps our stool to kind of move through quicker. So a few our teas, particularly the first and the second tea, so the liver detox and the colon cleanse teas, have a few bitter ingredients in there that can help with that liver bile. Particularly the liver detox tea. I can't remember exactly which ingredients it had in there, but it does have a couple that can help with your liver and bile. But also things like eating bitter greens. So often if I've got a meal, I will always pick whatever bitter green salad that I've got in the meal to eat first. So particularly for days like Christmas, where there might be a few different salads kicking around or a few different meals to pick from, I'll always add something with like rocket or spinach or kale or something like that, and eat a little bit of that first, especially if I can get them just on their own. But if they're mixed with other things, that's totally fine. That also helps to stimulate your liver to produce bile, which then helps your stool, literally lubricates the stool. And I think that's going to come to the end of my tips. I really quickly do want to touch on a couple of healthy recipe ideas. There's a few, what bitter foods can we eat? Yeah. Drinking a lot without a meal, is that okay? Yes, absolutely. Drinking, you want to still be drinking like 2 to 3 liters of water a day, whatever it is that suits your body. Yes, absolutely. You still need to drink a lot of water throughout the day. Just make sure that it's not during the meal because it will dilute your acids. Yeah, great. 3 liters a day, that's totally fine. I personally drink heaps. I just make sure that while I'm eating food, I don't drink too much. Yeah, bitter food. So definitely, if you can make, especially if you've got them in your backyard, a little salad of rocket, spinach, kale, even dandelion leaves are so good for the liver. You could put a little bit of apple cider vinegar on there, lemon juice. You could even just have the apple cider vinegar and lemon juice on their own before a meal. That can help to stimulate digestion and then bile, which helps with elimination. Another really great product that I really like, what's it called now? You get it from Iberogast. You get it from health food stores. Even Chemist Warehouse has it now. That's so great. You put a few drops in water. I think it's 20 drops in water. I can't remember exactly. I never followed the directions because I think there's a little bit better way to take it. But 20 minutes before a meal is really, really great. You can even do it after a meal if you're feeling a little bit off. It can help to kind of settle any sort of gas or anything that might still be sitting in your bowels. Healthy recipes. I've got one go-to that I do all the time. Actually, I'll tell you what that go-to is in a second. We've got one other one coming up in our recipe advent calendar. Won't tell you exactly which day it is. It's another one of my favorites. It's a raw dessert. You'll see it. It's a cake, but you can make it into slices. It's a take on, you'll see it come up. It's delicious. I have made that for lots of different people who normally think they don't like healthy food, and that one is always a winner. Another one that's always a winner is raw caramel slice. I have made this again for lots of different people. I actually made this one for my brother's engagement party, and there were lots of old uncles and different random people there, my brother and sister-in-law's friends, and I didn't tell anyone that it was raw. We literally just put it out and said caramel slice, and it went. I thought they'd have leftovers, I'd be able to put them in the fridge and enjoy them myself. It literally all went. It's so yummy. I have done it so many times now that I don't actually have a recipe. I just know what I put in the base, the middle, and the top, and I just get it now. I just get the consistency. But basically, if anyone wants to write it down, the base, I put nuts. So I'll just blend them until they're a meal. I'll put in dates and then a little bit of melted coconut oil. The middle, so the caramel bit, is just tahini, maple syrup, even agave or honey, they all work. Any of those kind of liquid natural sweeteners. And you need coconut oil too, so that it doesn't go runny, so that it holds its shape. Sometimes I'll also put chopped peanuts in there to make it more of a Snickers. Delicious. And the top is literally just, sometimes I'll buy dark chocolate, melt it, and then just mix in a little bit of almond milk or oat milk or something to so it's not so snappy, so it kind of will sit a little bit better. Or I'll make my own just in a really similar way. And that's always a really good one. If you're looking for a good healthy dessert to bring to a Christmas party or something, so good. I'm definitely going to be making a fair few of them this festive season. So I hope that's helped. Lots of takeaways, but also don't forget to just be kind to yourself. This whole season is never going to be perfect. Do the best you can. Take on all these tips. If there are moments where maybe things don't go to plan, know that there's still lots you can do. There's still a lot you can do around, jump back on the bandwagon the next day. Can we do a cooking session? I think next year we're hoping to do a couple of lives that are literally cooking classes. So I'm glad that you're excited for that too, because I'm pretty excited for that. All right, well, thanks for joining. Any questions, feel free to comment and I'll jump in tomorrow and answer. Otherwise, have a lovely evening. Bye.